Tonight is Atmanirbhar Bharat MSME booster dose, and we can see our guests have joined us. We have Ved Jain, tax expert, A.K. Bhattacharya is editorial director of the Business Standard, and Anil Bharadwaj is Secretary General of the Federation of Indian Micro and Small Medium Enterprises, all joining us. We'll start with you, Mr. Bharadwaj. This has been a focus on the MSME sector. You all have been redefined in a sense. Are you going to have a lot more MSMEs now under your belt? And how is it, immediately what does it do to the MSME sector, such an announcement like this today?
See, Prime Minister yesterday announced that there would be 4 pillars of the package.
Yes.
The law, land, labor and liquidity.
That's right.
So certainly today's focus has been on liquidity. And fortunately, the focus also has been MSMEs. And government, particularly Finance Minister, announced a mega package of 3 lakh crore loan package, which would be guaranteed through a credit guarantee mechanism, which would be created by Government of India. So the loans will be without any collateral and of the 4-year tenure with you can say a lot of flexibility built in. Then there are other announcements also for subordinate debt and fund of funds. So all those put together are very interesting. But let me also put before you that the most important demand of the MSMEs have been particularly related to the salaries and the interest waivers.
Okay.
So that has not yet been addressed. I think, and we hope that maybe in the coming days we'll have something to cheer about in these 2 directions also. Because, see, loans we require when we get into the mode of restarting. But currently our immediate problem is meeting the liabilities of the salaries and the interest on the loan that we have taken. So to that extent, I would say that so far it has been a mixed bag, something to cheer about and something to look forward to in the next few days.
Okay, let me go to Ved Jain on that question. The concern is with regard to payment of salaries, but the government has sort of made some relaxation in TDS. That is something that maybe the MSMEs can look forward to some extent. And also with the EPF, there have been contributions that the government continues to support. So, I mean, what more can the government do, would you think, Mr. Ved Jain, to help MSMEs with this particular aspect of, payment of salaries?
See, the government has done its best part. I believe, see, today they have announced 3 lakh crore rupees for MSME. That's the money, that's the liquidity which MSME has been facing a problem. So that's a major will have a major impact. So 3 lakh crore rupees will be provided to the MSME because the liquidity is the only crisis. That's the issue which is coming up. Now, when the money will be available with the MSME, I suppose they can pay the salaries out of that. That's the issue. Now, as you say, the definition which has been changed of this SME, that will be a big booster because those SMEs which could just grow up, they used to get out of this MSME definition, and that's why they were not able to take the benefit. Now, I believe those MSMEs, they grow up like in this category of the wider definition of a turnover and investment. They will be able to put more investment and they will be able to give competition to the others. And the 2 change. The 3rd change is which is EPF, etc. Now the government has done 2 parts. 1, in case you are of a level where the employees, 90% of the employees are less than 15,000 rupees salary, the government say we will bear the contribution to the PPF. Employer and employee both contribution we will pay. And in respect of other MSME, the government says we are reducing it from 12 to 10%. So, in fact, it will be a reduction.
Yes, Mr. Bharadwaj, actually there seems to be some problem with the signals being shared by each of the viewer, but the viewer can hear everything. That's the difference, but maybe each of you are going to have a difficulty hearing each other. That's going to be a little bit of a problem. We are hoping to sort it out technically. But let me come to you, Mr. Bhattacharya, now. This is the situation that we are in. We have a new, in a sense, it's a big announcement, isn't it? It's a huge package. It's a whole different orientation. Atmanirbhar Bharat, a booster dose for the MSMEs. What kind of a role do you think? I mean, we've always believed, this is an informal sector, but are we now making it much more organized, much more formal in a sense, and giving them much more weight? Would you say that?
Well, I don't think, I think we are definitely giving them more weight, but you have to see this package that has been announced today in two clear buckets. The first bucket is where the government is providing funds, finances through a variety of instruments, be they guarantee collateral-free loans up to the tune of 3 lakh crore for about 45 lakh or 4.5 million units. There is a fund of fund. There is, expeditious clearance of payments within 45 days. So at one level, you are seeing expeditious clearance of funds and allocation of money, finance through the MSME sector, which has, as you know, around 63 crore units. So there's a huge number of units there. So I think that's one element. But the second element, and which I see as of a long-term nature, because that is where the policies have been changed, which are that giving the MSME sector an opportunity to go in and grab a larger share of business in government procurements. And if you make sure that up to 200 crore of all government procurements and orders, there will be no global tendering. You are giving a big opportunity to the MSME sector. That is one policy change. I think it will see its impact over a period of time. And the second big policy change is with regard to the definition of the MSME units, wherein the investment and the turnover limit have been sort of put under one bucket, and the difference between the service unit and the manufacturing unit have been completely obliterated, which is a good move. And you have allowed the investment as well as the turnover limit to be raised to a point where the small, the medium, as well as the micro units do not feel threatened for growth. When they grow, they can still continue to enjoy the benefits that they are. Ideally, they should be given a kind of a policy environment wherein they don't need any support, but these are tiny units. They need the kind of support that you are talking about. So as an interim measure, I think both the moves are of a policy support, and I think they will go a long way. But as I said, there are two clear buckets. One is a liquidity push and the other is a policy push.
Right, Mr. Bharadwaj, what were you expecting? You did mention something about a problem with regard to salaries, but you know you have, as Mr. Bhattacharya was mentioning, 200 crore rupees. Those tenders will be available to companies which are within your range, and also when we look at apart from that, you have. Your definition has changed. There's liquidity that's been fused into the economy. This is the time. I mean, I understand that there are problems with regard to because of the lockdown. But if the economy has to restart, it is actually going to start with the MSME sector, in a sense, because you all are the largest employers and you all are the largest in terms of numbers. That's the way our economy is. So basically, you all contribute the most in a way.
See, the issue is that, the liability of salaries is such that it has to be disposed of or met right now. If you don't pay people salaries right now, either they are not going to work for you, then you will not be complying with the law also. So far as this 3 lakh crore package of loan is concerned, and one of the panelists was saying that, you can always take a loan. Taking the loan and getting the money would take months. You don't have time. You have to pay the salaries now. If you don't pay the salaries, you would not be meeting your obligations, legal obligations also. And there are already some states which have pronounced that if you don't pay the salaries, will imprison you. So there is fear of imprisonment if you don't pay time. So there are different kind of problems that MSME entrepreneurs are facing currently during this crisis, and we need to be empathetic to the pain that they are facing. Now, coming to this 200 crore rupees tender threshold that has been fixed now, that cannot be announced globally, I think is a fair decision. Indian government can take this call because we are not signatory to a multilateral agreement on public procurement.
Okay.
It is within our very much right that we can have specific dispensation for specific sectors, including MSMEs, which government has rightly exercised. So we welcome this decision. What would be the impact? It would be seen that whether the government agencies follow this in letter and spirit, because sometimes it has been seen that government agencies or departments sometimes they tend to bundle these smaller tenders. So instead of doing 200 crore rupees, they can club it for 600 crore rupees and again go for global tendering. So we have to see that this nice decision is followed in letter and spirit.
Right. Mr. Ved Jain, how would you look at the 30,000 crore rupees liquidity facility for NBFCs, also for MFIs, and also the partial credit guarantee scheme 2.0, 45,000 crore rupees for NBFCs? How much liquidity injection will this bring into the economy?
Just a few seconds, I will just explain the whole scheme which the finance minister has worked it out.
Okay.
See, what you done is, what the objective was, how to drive the economy, how to make the India the self-reliant Atmanirbhar, which we are talking about it. Now, government has realized that MSME sector plays the biggest role, and that's why there was two options available to the government to put a money direct into the hand of the MSME, which as a revenue contribution, or on the other side, the government, and that would have been a small amount, not a bigger amount, because when you give money as a grant or subsidy, you cannot give the huge money. Now, government has today given to MSME 3 lakh crore rupees ring fenced. Look, this money is coming to you from a bank where the government is giving a guarantee to you. Said, you please work out, develop yourself, pay your salary, run your industry. If in case you are a loss, you will not be, I will reimburse to the bank because as a guarantor, as a government, I am giving a guarantee to you. If you are in stress today, if you want to come back and come out, I am giving you 20,000 crore rupees more. You please get out of the stress. That's the issue. I'm putting another 50,000 crore rupees. If you really want to grow, you don't have the capital, I will give you the capital and as an equity contribution. So these are the three ring fence. And moreover, the 200 crore rupees ceiling on a global tender that it cannot be globally tendered or beyond 200 crore rupees is ensuring that you will continue to get a good business from the government. All tenders will be exclusively meant. Now, coming to the grant which has been concession which has been given for NBFC. Now, what NBFC plays a role? Where you cannot get a fund from a bank, NBFC moves in because NBFC plays a critical role in bridging the gap where the banks can't reach out, but NBFC reaches out. Now, those NBFC were also under stress. So now there are three schemes which have been announced. One is a direct funding which has been given to NBFC in respect of the corporate bond, etc., they have issued and all those issues where their obligations are coming up. And then they are saying, yes, you bear a partial, I'm giving a partial, what? So the meaning thereby, so there is another 45,000 crore rupees coming to NBFC. So these are the, I believe, what has been done. Ultimately, NBFC also plays a very critical role in the Indian economy. And that realizing that most of the NBFC would have funded like MSME or other sector, so they may not be under stress because if they are under stress, they will put pressure on MSME. So that money will also flow in. So the huge flow of the money in the economy to propel the economy. And what I believe, the stimulus package is being used, what I will see, a corona challenge is trying to be converted into an opportunity for India.
Absolutely. Crisis has been converted into an opportunity. That's clear. Mr. Bharadwaj, you know, I mean, in this time of the lockdown as well, we've seen that our country has risen to the occasion. We've produced a number of masks, PPEs. You know, this has all been done by the MSME sector, which has been significant. If you look, you know, of course, the government had banned the export of all these items, but to see that, you know, the huge demand now, which will be within the country, there's so much even under the lockdown period that the MSMEs have risen to the occasion. There is definitely a lot of faith that the Prime Minister and the government places in the MSME sector. And I mean, how would you respond? Also, with what Mr. Ved Jain says, I mean, you've been given equity, you've been given credit, and you've been given a market, and you've been given, you know, guarantees of demand. So, really speaking, this is all you need.
Oh, we need much more actually. Running a small scale industry is pretty difficult in this crisis situation. And I mean, this is going to be challenging times for a very large number of MSMEs who would find it extremely difficult to survive this crisis. And many of them would definitely need assistance. And in such situation, the funds that have been created would certainly be of help. But let's not forget that many of them would not be able to retain the kind of employment that we have pre-COVID. And that is going to be a challenge for the country also, that how to retain employment and not only retain, create also. There would be some opportunities for sure, but currently the immediate question is of survival. And that's where we need to focus our energies, that large number of MSMEs are the units, they are, it's like, patients with underlying conditions. So they are already stressed in many ways. They are overstressed. With the smaller disturbance in their cycles can make them, you can say, dead. So that's why it is important that, we need to be empathetic to their pains.
Right, Mr. Anil Bharadwaj, thanks for joining us. I understand that you are pressed for time, so we thank you for joining us in this discussion. Let me go to you, Mr. A.K. Bhattacharya. Well, I mean, the MSME sector, there is, in the economic theory, where one would think that at a time of a lockdown, if you put money into areas which are locked down, then obviously the stimulus is locked down as well. I mean, that doesn't really cause much good. But the point is that these are the sectors in which there can be some sort of recharging taking place, because it's not large. I mean, the amounts are going to be small, and you can and it begins like that. I mean, you begin small. And what would you think? I mean, this is the way we have to re-stimulate the economy, by focusing on these sectors first, the MSME sector, and then of course the larger companies which have had cash in the bank and cash surpluses will later on take off from wherever they are.
Well, you have to recognize that the MSME sector has large number of units, and almost 40% or almost 40% of India's unorganized sector workers actually work in the MSME units, and that is a huge number. There's a 180 million or 18 crore workers. Now, if you are able to provide more money into the MSME units, and you can help them come back into the production cycle, they are expected to get the workers back under their fold, and therefore you are creating, through a supply push, you may also help in reviving demand. So I know it's a long, tortuous process, but at least you are taking care of not just these 630 million MSME units, but also taking care of 18 million workers. So therefore, I think this is an attempt worth undertaking. There are many better ways of handling this issue, but I think something is better than nothing.
Okay. Jen, how would you understand that, I mean, this is the first tranche. So it's been announced today, and the package, of course, is 20,000 crore rupees. Today we've had about maybe a significant portion of that has been announced, actually. How would you look at this, in the overall scheme of things? Because the Prime Minister spoke of economy, infrastructure, system, vibrant demography and demand. And we have catered, in a sense, to some portion of infrastructure, some portion of demand. We're looking at the system as well in certain areas which the government, by the announcement, seems to consider as top priority right now.
We need to understand the overall Indian economy. See, there may be a lot of demand and a lot of areas where we need to work and where we need to meet those demands. But then we need to understand the compulsion of the Indian economy also. Coming to this first fiscal issue, 20 lakh crore itself is a very big amount. You cannot say it is a small amount, 10% of the GDP, for a country like India. We do not have a surplus budget like many developed nations have. If you are rich, you can spend from the past saving. If you are not so rich, you cannot spend from the past saving because you don't have the past saving. So we do not come in the first category, we come in the second category. That's the issue. Now, coming to the vision of the Prime Minister, he has said there are 5 pillars we are working and we need to work it on. Economy is the first issue which he has addressed on that part, first part which is infrastructure. Some issues have been taken up here. I believe MSME sector, something like this. I see in the years to come, in the days to come, some announcement will follow on the infrastructure part also. Then there is an issue of a demand. I believe this 3 lakh crore rupees pumped into MSME, where it, as Mr. Bhattacharya say, is a large part of unorganized sector get applied. If they get this payment and get their applied on that issue, I believe they are going to create a big demand for India for consumption. And if that consumption happens, automatically the economies will start propelling and moving forward. So that is what I am looking into. Some other issues which the Honorable Prime Minister talked about of the system, etc. I believe in the days to come, some announcement will follow, and on those issues, the true vision of the Prime Minister to make India self-reliant, I believe in the days to come it will follow. So today package, I believe, was by and large to address the fiscal issue which have been coming up, and to address the issue of the problem which have come up with the coronavirus and with the lockdown which has happened. I am of the view that this money being now available, the economy will open up the lockdown. So the MSME sector will be able to move forward and to work.
We are running short of time. I'd like to Mr. Bhattacharya to have the last word. But we are in a lockdown. We are going to be in lockdown 4.0 as well, Mr. Bhattacharya. So that, in a sense, to what extent does that slow down the process? Because lockdown implies a lack of economic activities. But here we are trying to spur the economy as well at the same time. What's that balance going to be like?
Well, I think the very fact that such a package has been announced today is a clear indication that Lockdown 4 will be a substantially relaxed version of Lockdown 3. I mean, you cannot say that one hand of the government does not know the other hand. Surely there is coordination there, and if a package of 20 lakh crore was announced yesterday, if another MSME package to revive economic activity in the MSME sector has been announced today, clearly the government has in mind that the Lockdown 4 will gradually pave the way for opening up more economic activities in wards, in zones which are outside the containment areas, and probably economic activity can come back to the normal provided social distancing norms and other caution is employed.
Right. Thanks very much, Mr. A.K. Bhattacharya and Mr. Ved Jain for joining us on this discussion, and earlier we had Mr. Anil Bhardwaj as well. So clearly we can see that this huge package of